So, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Hope you are all doing well and staying safe. I am Mariam Shref, a senior petroleum engineering student at the Lebanese American University, and I'll be moderating today's session. I want to begin by wishing you all a safe, healthy, and prosperous new year full of achievements and success. Our session today is the first session of the course titled Introduction to Well Stimulation, presented by a proficient speaker with an extensive experience in the oil and gas industry. I'm sure that his participation will benefit all attendees. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Ahmed Algarhy. Dr. Algarhy is the director of BioPetro, a nonprofit educational project. He is an assistant professor at Marietta College, Ohio, USA, where he teaches hydraulic fracturing, geomechanics, and unconventional reservoir evaluation and development. Dr. Algarhy holds a PhD degree and a master's degree in petroleum engineering from Texas Tech University. Besides, he holds a master's degree in petroleum engineering, natural gas engineering postgraduate diploma, and a bachelor in science in mining engineering, all from Cairo University in Egypt. Dr. Algarhy has over 11 years of oil and gas industry experience with operation and service companies that focuses on hydraulic fracturing, geomechanics, and unconventional reservoir evaluation and development. Prior to working for Marietta College, Dr. Algarhy worked for Advantech International, OGS, Khalda Petroleum Company, Texas Tech University, and Solomon and Associates. Moreover, Dr. Algarhy published many journals and research papers with Elsevier, SPE, SPWLA, and ARMA. In addition, he filed two U.S. patent applications to increase hydrocarbon recovery in both conventional and unconventional reservoirs. On a final note, if you have any question related to the technical content of the presentation, please feel free to drop it down in the Q&A section. And for any comments, please leave them in the chat section. And now, Dr. Algarhy, the mic is yours.
Mariam, thank you very much for the introduction. It is always a pleasure to be with all my students. And today, as Mariam said, it will be the first lecture of a 4 lectures course titled Introduction to Well Stimulation. So let's begin. So today I want to talk to you about what is formation damage, what is well stimulation, what is hydraulic fracturing, and why we do hydraulic fracturing. And remember that formation damage is our major enemy in the oil and gas industry. But before we start, let me quickly give you some notes. Many students, especially the new ones, ask how to register in this class. You will see an ad in our Oil and Gas Academy Facebook group, and you will see below each picture, here is like three courses will be done in January, and you will see under my picture in the middle, for example, you will see Google Classroom section 1, and you will see a code, and section 2, you will see a second code. Only you use one code. Why? Because one classroom has 1,000 students. So if we have like, let's say 1,500 students, we cannot put all of them in one section or in one class. So we need to have 2 classes, and you need to register only one time. So please don't go and register twice in each section. So just one time, okay? Also remember there's a quiz after each lecture. So 4 lectures mean 4 quizzes, and there is a final exam, and you need to get more than 70% in all of them, in the total, to receive your certificate. Okay. Also, another note, remember this activity we are doing, this is under BioPetro students. BioPetro students in a joint venture or in a cooperation with SPE Egypt section. And both together, we founded Arab Oil and Gas Academy, and we are doing these activities. Because some students, they get confused about the blue BioPetro and the red BioPetro. Blue BioPetro, this is services for students and is free of charge. The red one, this is not for individuals, not for students. This is for companies. So just forget about it and focus only with biopetro students. Okay. Okay. So let's begin the lecture. The first question today: what is formation damage? You see, this is your enemy. Know your enemy. Formation damage is your enemy as a petroleum engineer. So we can say a formation damage is something damaging your permeability. We all know that to have oil and gas inside a layer or a formation or what we call a reservoir, we need to have porosity. We need to have some space, and this space it filled with hydrocarbon and some water. Okay, so this is our reservoir. But remember, if there's no connectivity between these pores, I mean, if there's no permeability, if this oil or gas or water cannot flow from somewhere inside the reservoir to another place, and for sure I wanted to move to the wellbore, it means there is no permeability. So I will not be happy if I have a good porosity but no permeability, because this will make my oil or gas production very, very challenging. I need to have a permeability. So anything will damage this permeability, I can call it this is a formation damage. This is something damaging my formation or damaging my permeability. So damage can be caused by drilling fluids. So from day one, you start drilling your reservoir. For sure, the drilling fluids has a lot of solids mixed in that, liquid. And for sure, these solids will invade into the reservoir, and for sure, it will damage your reservoir. And you need to think about how to fix this problem. It is not only drilling, it is also drilling during production, during hydraulic fracturing, during perforation, in all stages of our well life, we will find some types of formation damage. So today we want to learn the minimum acceptable information about all types of formation damage, so we can prepare you as a students. Now whenever you get jobs, you can learn more and more about formation damage. Okay. Also, if we have a formation damage, this will give you a positive skin, but right now we don't know what is skin mean. So just wait for a few minutes and I will teach you what is skin mean and what is positive skin mean. Okay. Okay. So damage during well life, starting from the drilling, mainly because of the drilling fluids, also during the cementing, also the perforation, also during completion of workover operation, also during gravel pack production, stimulation, or and also when we have injectors, when we inject, let's say, water in a water flooding project, for example, for sure we may cause a formation damage. For example, if you have a lot of a scale, which is a salt deposition inside my tubing, I will inject these solids or these salts from the tubing. I will inject it to the formation and damaging my formation. How I know that? If it is an injector, I will notice there's a decline in the injectivity. If it is a producer and there's a formation damage, for sure I may notice, for sure I will notice a decline in productivity. Okay, so in all stages of my well life, I will see types of formation damage. Okay. Okay. It is not only salts like let's say calcium carbonate or things like that. Also, we may have some organic deposits. Okay, some organic deposits like paraffins, wax, asphaltene, resin. All these organic things may deposit in the tubing and cause a restriction of the flow to the flow of the oil or gas and water, because when we produce all, most likely we produce all of them together. Most likely I will have some oil, some gas, and some water in most of the reservoirs. And any restriction in the tubing, for example, because of the organic deposition, I can consider that mechanical formation damage also. Okay. Okay. So by the way, we have two types of, two main mechanisms. If we have, if this deposition happened because of chemical reaction, I would call it chemical formation damage. If it is because of, something mechanical happened, I would call that mechanical formation damage. Okay, so common formation damage mechanism, mainly because maybe there is incompatibility between fluids. Let's say I'm injecting a fluid from the surface, and this fluid is not compatible with a fluid inside the reservoir. Or I may mixing two fluids. Let's say I have a seawater, and I mix the seawater with, let's say, produced water, and I use both of them together to inject in a reservoir. This is maybe not compatible waters, and maybe get me some, let's say, scale deposition, for example, specific types of scale deposition. Maybe this incompatibility between the rock and the fluid. So the first one was between two fluids, most likely one fluid from the surface and one fluid from the reservoir, for example, or two fluids from the surface. Or the second one is rock and fluid, both not compatible together. And also you may inject something that will change the wettability, and changing wettability of the reservoir will affect the oil and gas production for sure. Okay. And there's also considered a formation damage. Also, maybe because of fines invasion or fines migration, when small particles moves from somewhere inside the reservoir to another place inside the reservoir and get stuck at some pore throats. When these particles get stuck in pore throats, for sure it will damage the permeability and will stop any fluid coming behind it and cannot continue to the well bore. Okay, so this is different mechanisms of formation damages, and I want all of you to remember that, formation damage may occur in all formations. So all types of your reservoir, if it is, let's say, limestone, dolomite, sandstone, shale, tight sand, whatever formation, for sure there is a formation damage may happen with it. And easily you can figure out there's a formation damage problem because you will notice a big loss of well performance, a decline in productivity, or a decline in injectivity if you are talking about injector and not producer. And mainly this will happen because it is the pore throats, or the things, the bottlenecks connecting pores together get plugged. Okay. Also, I mentioned just 1 minute ago something about changing wettability. We love to have a water wet reservoir. A water wet reservoirs means the rock like to keep and attract the water and kick out and produce the oil. If you inject something by mistake, and this chemical, for example, change the wettability and make that reservoir, instead of being water wet, become oil wet. So the reservoir will like to attract and keep the oil and kick out the water, and you will start producing more water instead of more oil. And this is for sure not something good, because we are petroleum engineers, not water engineers. We are here in this business to produce oil and gas and not to produce water. Okay. It may occur anytime, maybe from day one, maybe after 1 month, maybe after 5 years. So it may occur anytime. Okay. Also, it can take various periods of time. It may be short period, it may be long period. So it is different from a case to another case. It is very similar to an old man has a multiple diseases, like someone, let's say, has a diabetes, has a high blood pressure, and has, let's say, Alzheimer or whatever. So maybe an old man has many diseases at the same time. Or maybe someone in 20s, for example, like in your age, and has only one disease. Okay, maybe he get like cold, COVID-19, or whatever. So it is only one disease. So formation damage may be only something single, like a single type, or maybe multiple types together. And please, 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 if you cannot figure out what is this type of formation damage, if you cannot understand exactly what is happening in your reservoir, please don't do anything. Just wait, collect more information until you understand the problem, then you decide how to fix it. It is very similar to a patient when he go to a physician or a doctor. The doctor will not give you any medicine before he understand exactly what kind of disease you have. If the doctor don't know what kind of disease or what kind of problems in your health, he will not give you any medicine. Correct? So the same thing here in our oil and gas industry. Okay. Um, Also, it may, again, it may be single, it may be, complex, like multiple types, and it is better to avoid than to treat. Please, we also advise all of you to stay healthy, to get a social distance, to wear a mask, just because we want all of you to avoid COVID-19. And for sure, if you avoid it, it is better than get the virus and go to the hospital and get a lot of medicine and you spend a lot of money. Okay, so the same scenario here. So as a summary of how to identify a formation damage, I will notice there's a loss of well performance. Also, I can do a PLT. PLT is a very famous term in oil and gas, and it stands for production logging tool. Okay, there is many production logging tools, and we made many videos, many lectures about production logging, and you can find all of them in PioPetro YouTube channel. Okay, so for example, I can send a production logging tool over a wire line, and it goes to face the perforation, and it can tell me exactly each perforation set, how much oil it produces, how much water, and how much gas. I can know that. Okay, so if I am producing from a big lateral or a long lateral in a horizontal well, I can know exactly from where I'm getting the water. Why? Because I sent a production logging tool and I can figure out from where I'm getting this excess of water. Okay. Also, I can get a sample. I can get a sample. Okay. And the sample may show that there is a lot of bacteria, for example. There's a lot of SRB, sulfur reducing bacteria, for example. Also, this sample may show that there is a lot of scale, and scale, there is many different types of scales. Okay, so I can know exactly which type of scales I have, and this is because I get a sample from downhole. Also, I can send a downhole video camera. It is very similar when you get something wrong with your stomach and you go to the doctor and I say, hey, we will send a little camera over a cable to your stomach from your mouth. Then they will get some pictures for your stomach from inside. And I will say, hey, you have an ulcer, you have any other problems with your stomach, or nothing wrong. So also I can do that. Although it is rare because, sending a video camera is kind of expensive and not common practice, but still we can do it. Okay. So how to part of how to avoid formation damage, I can use a lot of additives control. I can add some chemicals, for example, to control corrosion, to control sludging. Sludging, when we mix many fluids together, sometimes it become muddy. It become a muddy shape, so we call it sludge. Okay. Also, I may add something to control emulsion. Emulsion is like when we mix oil in water, or you mix water in oil, and you make something again looks like a sludge or in a muddy shape. And if you want to know how emulsion look like, you can get a cup of water, put it in a mixer in your kitchen, and you add 2 spoons or 3 spoons of oil, like the olive oil or whatever type of oil, and mix them together. You will see them become like mix it together, and we call that oil in water, because water is more than the oil. And we can do the opposite also. Also, I can do some additives to control the organic deposition or inorganic deposition. Also, I can do some additives to stabilize clay and make fluids more homogeneous together with the reservoir fluids. Also, to control the interfacial tension. So there's a lot of additives, and please, again, don't use any of these additives before you understand exactly what you are doing, when you have enough experience to do that. Why? Because if you do any mistake, it may cost you millions of dollars to fix it. If you inject something by mistake and you change the wettability, this will cost you millions of dollars to fix that. Okay? Remember, formation damage, to get rid of a formation damage, it is integrated effort. So there's a lot of different engineers, the reservoir engineers, production engineers, a lot of chemists, guys, a lot of engineers working for a service company, production logging engineers. All of these they integrate together to figure out, to evaluate, to know exactly what is the problem and to evaluate the problem and to decide what should be the right solution. And again, remember, it is always better to avoid than to treat. So formation damage is your enemy. Your major enemy as a petroleum engineer is formation damage. Please keep this in your mind. Okay, one of the major problems when we talk about formation damage, because formation damage is something qualitative. I can say you are good, or you are bad, or you are excellent, but sometimes we don't know exactly how good you are. So I need to have a scale. This is why we say, hey, you get in your exam, you get 75%, and your colleague get 85. So I can say if he get 85, so most likely he spent more efforts and he studied more than what you did because you get only 75. So one of the major problems of formation damage that we need to convert it from something qualitative to something quantitative. Okay, so we invented a scale called skin factor. And skin factor is just a measure to tell you exactly how much damage is. And damage, when you have a formation damage, it is positive skin factor. When you have a positive skin factor, means this is a formation damage. If you have negative skin factor, means we did stimulation, or this well is stimulated. Stimulated means become better, become better. It has better production now. This well used to produce 1,000 barrel per day, and after doing stimulation, it become 2,000. So we double the production. Okay, so this is, you will see a negative skin factor. But if this well used to produce 1,000 barrel per day, and today it produced 500, so it produced only half, it means there is a positive skin factor. If the skin factor is 0, it means I did not touch the reservoir. I did not cause any formation damage. I did not do any stimulation. Okay? Okay. Okay, so one more time, the difference between a formation damage and well stimulation. I think all of you know who is this guy. This is Mr. Olympia, Big Ramy. And this strong guy is a stimulated well. He's not normal like us. He used to go to gym every day, every single day to do body building. So this guy is stronger than normal people. Okay, so this is stimulated well. Okay, and the picture in the bottom, this sick guy, this is a damaged well. So when you go to the gym, you will have negative skin factor stimulated, big muscles. When you have a formation damage, means you are sick. This is, you will have a positive skin. If you have zero skin factor, it means I'm not very strong. I'm not with a big muscles, but I'm not sick also. So just, normal person. Okay. Okay. So positive skin. So before we answer this, please everybody give me all your attention because I have a question for you. I have a question for you. You will see a question showing in front of you. Please try to answer this question quickly. You have 30 seconds. Please answer this question quickly. Positive skin, is it possible to be plus 100? Is it possible to have a positive skin of 100? It seems like 90%, no, it seems like 60% of you said no, it is impossible to be 100, positive 100. And around 40% of you said yes, it can be. Okay, so this is bad for me because the right answer is yes. Positive skin can be plus 100. This is possible. Okay, so thank you very much for participating in this question, and I will end the polling, the poll, and I will share the results with you. Let me get a picture of it, just for to. Okay. I will have a second question for you. Ready? Are you ready for the second question? You have 30 seconds. Negative skin, is it possible to be minus 100? Negative skin, is it possible to be minus 100? Everybody voted. Okay, I will end the polling now. So 53% said no, it cannot be negative 100. And 48% said yes. So the right answer is it is impossible to have negative 100. Okay, let me explain. Okay, thank you very much for doing this little poll. And for a positive scan, is it possible to be 100? The answer is yes. I may have a positive scan of 150 or 120 or 80 or 50. Yes, it is possible. But for the negative scan, when you do a stimulation, it is impossible to see something less than minus 4 in practical life. But in your calculations, if you do, examples, you solve a problem in a book, you may get minus 7 or minus 8. But in your real life, you will never see something less than minus 4. So minus 20, impossible. Minus 30, impossible. Minus 100, impossible. You will not see that. And for sure, there is a mistake when you do that. Okay. So for stimulation, for the negative scan, most likely we see something lower, up to -4. But if you solve a problem in a book, you may find -7 or -8, which is not realistic, but we still, see that when we do a mathematical model for the scan. But for the positive scan, yes, it is okay to see plus 100 to 150. It is no problem. Okay. Okay, so here is one of the models. There is many different models to quantify skin factor, and here's one of the most famous models. We call it Hawkins formula. And here is look to the last line. S equal K, which is a permeability, over Ks, which is a permeability of the damaged zone. And len, this is a natural logarithm. And Rs, this is the radius of the damaged zone. And Rw, this is the radius of the well bore. So we can use this equation, and you see if you get something positive, it means there's a formation damage. If you get something negative, it means there is stimulation happen for this well. Okay, as a quick summary, mechanical factors, maybe solids invasion during drilling, emulsion, water blockage. Water blockage, this is happen mainly in gas wells. The water will accumulate in some places, and it will stop the gas from flowing from somewhere inside the reservoir to another place. Also, there are some chemical factors, and chemical factors, this is precipitation due to incompatibility fluids, like, for example, sulfate or sulfide, and maybe fines migration, and maybe bacteria. So all of these things, and also the deposition of organic material like wax or paraffin, all of that we consider chemical factors. Okay. Okay. Fines migration. I'd like to explain what is fines migration, because a famous question: what is the difference between fines migration and sand production? Okay, so fines migration simply when fine clays or quartz or any little particles move from somewhere inside the reservoir to another place inside the reservoir. So the movement of this particle is still inside the reservoir. It is moving from somewhere inside the reservoir to another place inside the reservoir, but not reaching the wellbore. So we call that fines migration. And maybe this fines, when it moves from somewhere, it will stuck in any pore throat and will block or plug this pore throat and will damage the permeability. But if the solids reach the wellbore, and now you can produce the solids to the surface, we call that sand production. Okay, and the sand production can cause a big problem because it may damage your tubing. Okay, so this is simply the main difference between fines migration and sand production. Okay, so let's talk about what is well stimulation. What is well stimulation? Okay, so well stimulation is this strong guy. I'm trying to make my well stronger than normal. Okay, I will make this well stronger than normal. Okay, so it is a well intervention job. I will do a job to make my well produce more oil and gas. Okay, more oil and gas. Why? Because maybe I need, the oil price is very high these days, maybe, and I need to produce more oil to get more money. Okay, maybe I get a formation damage problem and I lost a lot of production, and now I want to do a stimulation job to get more production to fix the formation damage problem or to bypass the formation damage problem. And I will show you what is the difference between fixing the problem and bypassing the problem. So when we say well stimulation, most likely I'm talking about hydraulic fracturing, acidizing, or acid fracturing. So it is three things. If you get a book about well stimulation, you will find it mainly talking about hydraulic fracturing, acidizing, and acid fracturing. Okay, so let's go to number one. What is hydraulic fracturing? What is hydraulic fracturing? Okay, so hydraulic fracturing is a job we inject engineered fluids. When we say engineered fluids, I mean I cannot inject any fluids. It is a fluid with specifications. I will say fresh water meeting this specifications. Meeting specification means it should have a minimum amount of phosphate, a minimum amount of iron, a minimum amount of whatever solids or whatever salts, and I may mix that with let's say guar, mix it with crosslinker, mix it with breaker, mix it with some additives, and I may add something called proppant. This solid sands, we call it proppant. This is small balls, and I will show you why we need to use this proppant. Okay. After you mix all of this together, you will inject it downhole, and it will go in front of the perforation and start building a bottom hole pressure. That bottom hole pressure keep increasing, increasing, increasing until the limit it will break the formation. It will crack the formation. It will make the formation become two parts. Okay, so and I will create two wings of my fracture. So the fracture will be like a wellbore in the middle and two wings from the two sides. This is my hydraulic fracture. This is a idealistic picture of a hydraulic fracture. So these two wings will keep extending, increasing the fracture length, and most likely it will stay contained because there is a shale barrier at the top and shale barrier at the bottom, most likely, or there is a high stress zone at the top and high stress zone at the bottom. So the fracture will stay to the fracture height will be controlled. Okay. Also, the fracture width will be very, very small, something like a portion of a centimeter, like 2 millimeter or 1 millimeter, something very, very small. This is the fracture width. Okay. Why I need to use proppant? Because after you stop pumping this fluid, the rock which is cracked will return back again to the original place, and it will close. So you will not benefit anything. You created a fracture, and now you close that fracture. So there is no benefit. So I need to inject this proppant to stay in the middle. To stay in the middle. Let me show you how. I get these, let's say, this pen, and instead of closing my fracture, I will keep this pen in the middle. So still there are some gaps between my two hands, so the hydrocarbon can flow through these gaps. So I want to keep the fracture open. So the simple answer, if I ask you what is the function of a proppant, you can tell me a proppant will keep the fracture open, will not let the fracture close to the end. Okay, it will stay in the middle and having a very conductive surface between the two sides of the fracture. Okay. Okay, so I can summarize that the hydraulic fracturing will create a high conductive or high conductivity surface that communicate the reservoir with my wellbore. Okay, and that highway I'm creating will increase the productivity. Look to this picture. To the right side, there's a vertical well. These vertical wells very common in Western Desert in Egypt, for example, and it is common in Iraq, and for example, because in Iraq there is a thick formation. Also, it is common maybe in Libya and Algeria, and in many countries. And remember, before the 90s up to 80s, all the wells were vertical wells or little angle or slanted a little bit. No horizontal wells, before the beginning of the 90s. So the first horizontal well we had, it was in late 80s, maybe 1989 or 1988, something like that, most likely 1989. Okay, so I have the perforation here in front facing the reservoir, and I will inject the frac fluid with the propellant to create the fracture. And starting from the next lecture, I will give you more and more information about how we do a hydraulic fracturing job. Nowadays, horizontal wells become very common, but I cannot fracture all the lateral or all the horizontal section in one stage. It is too hard for me to do that. Okay, I cannot get pumps that can inject fluids to fracture 5,000 feet at the same time. So I must do it in stages. So look to this different color here, this green one, and maybe this is a pink, this is yellow. So these different colors, each one is a stage. And I will start from the stage near the toe here. I will call this is the toe of the well, and this is the heel. Toe and heel, if you look to your foot, if you look to your shoe, for example, or your foot, the this part will be the heel, and this part, the tip of your toes, your foot toes, we call that the toe. Okay, so it is very similar to that. Okay, one of the good questions: do we only do hydraulic fracturing job for low permeability reservoirs? When you have a low permeability reservoirs, it means the productivity is too low, so I need to do a hydraulic frac job to increase the productivity. The answer is no. Sometimes we do hydraulic fracturing jobs for high permeability reservoirs, like in deep water wells in Gulf of Mexico, for example. It is sandstone formation, for example, and it is very productive, very high permeability. But why we do hydraulic frac? As a sand control. We do it to stop as you are creating a screen inside your formation, and this screen will stop the sand production inside the formation. So sometimes we do hydraulic fracturing for high permeable formation, not to enhance productivity, but to stop sand production. Okay, please watch this video.
There are many formations with multi-zone oil and gas reservoirs that are vertically drilled and stimulated using hydraulic fracturing to optimally recover these hydrocarbons. In this example, we show a well targeting 3 sandstone layers, although this number may vary in different oil and gas plays. Once the drill rig and other infrastructure is in place, a bit mounted on the end of the drill pipe begins drilling the well. The well is initially drilled to a designated distance below the deepest fresh water source near the surface. The pipe and bit are then removed and surface casing is inserted into the hole. The casing is then secured into place by pumping cement through the casing and through the shoe at the bottom of the hole. The cement barrier and steel casing prevent any contamination of freshwater aquifers. Once the casing cement has set, drilling of the intermediate section of the hole continues by drilling through the wiper plug, shoe, and cement at the bottom of the wellbore and on toward the targeted zones. Throughout the drilling, a mixture called mud is pumped down into the well through the drill pipe. The mud serves to keep the drill bit cool. It carries the cuttings to the surface and provides hydrostatic pressure, prohibiting formation fluids from entering the wellbore. As drilling approaches the depth of the first target zone, a technician called a mud logger is brought on location. He analyzes the cuttings, identifying the downhole lithology and any presence of hydrocarbons. As the well is being drilled, he provides real-time information to the company geologist and rig personnel. Once the bottom of the intermediate section is reached, the drill pipe and bit are again removed from the well bore, and intermediate casing is inserted into the hole and connected to the surface casing. The intermediate casing is also cemented to secure the hole. The drill pipe and bit are again lowered back into the hole and drills through the wiper plug, shoe, and cement. Once total depth is reached, the drill pipe and bit are removed from the well bore one last time. Next, a logging tool is lowered to the bottom of the well on a wire line. As the tool is pulled back up the entire length of the well, data is gathered to create an electric log. Once the well has been logged and deemed a commercial well, production casing is then inserted. As with the surface and intermediate casing, the production casing is also cemented into the hole. Back on the surface, the drilling rig is no longer needed. A temporary wellhead is installed and the location is prepared for the service crews who will ready the well for production. The first of these steps is to perforate or perf the casing. A perforating gun is lowered by wire line to the lowest of the 3 target zones. An electrical current is sent down the wire line to the perf gun, setting off a charge which shoots holes through the steel casing, cement, and out a short distance into the target formation. The perf gun is then pulled out of the hole. The next step is to hydraulically fracture or frack the zone. Here, sand or other proppants are pumped into the wellbore under extremely high pressure. When the mixture reaches the target zone, the pressure forces it out through the perf holes and out into the sandstone formation, causing it to fracture. This creates a fairway connecting the reservoir to the well and allows the released oil to flow to the wellbore. Next, a bridge plug is placed inside the production casing, isolating the fracked zone. The hydraulic fracture process is then repeated for zones 2 and 1. Now that the frac process is complete, the plugs are drilled out and production tubing is lowered into the wellbore to reach each of the productive zones. Hydrocarbons can now flow simultaneously from each of the zones into the well. The next step is to install a permanent wellhead and other necessary surface equipment. Sometimes a pump jack is used to help bring the oil to the surface. The final step is to install and connect a pipeline to the well that will transport the oil to the nation's pipeline network. Wells that produce from several zones simultaneously result in greater cost efficiency and increased productivity.
Okay, so this video has a good summary of what we are doing in the oil and gas, but the only comment I want to tell you, in this video, we had 3 reservoirs. We produce 3 layers or 3 reservoirs at the same time. This is not common in many countries. For example, in Egypt, in the Western Desert, we have, for example, Apache. Apache like to, the American company, the famous American company Apache, they like to produce reservoirs one by one. Let's say if you have a 1 well, and this well intersect with 3 reservoirs, so I will go and produce the bottom, the lowest one, the one at the bottom. Let's say you have a well, a reservoir at 10,000 feet, and the second one at 8,000 feet, and the third one at 6,000 feet. I will produce the deepest one, the one at the 10,000 feet. I will keep producing many years until I drain it, or I drain as much as possible. Then I will get up and set a plug. Then I will produce a second one until I produce as much as possible. Then I will get up and set a plug and produce a third one. So yes, we can have a dual completion or triple completion, and we can produce 2 reservoirs or 3 reservoirs at the same time, but not all companies like to do it this way. Many companies like to drain reservoirs one by one. Okay, so if you want to work in hydraulic fracturing, please, you need to remember this graph the same way you remember this name. You remember your name, okay? So the x-axis is the time, the y-axis is the bottom hole pressure. And look to the mouse, I will do my best to have constant injection rate. In real life, it is go up and down, but I will do my best to keep it constant. Okay, it is better to keep it constant. So my mathematical analysis later, when I evaluate my job, it will be better. And the numbers I will get, it will make more sense. But if the injection rate go up and down and not semi-constant, your analysis will be wrong. Okay, so whenever you start injecting, you will see the bottom hole pressure keep increasing, 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 and as a straight line, then start to bend to this point, then boom, breakdown. Now the formation is two pieces. Okay, so when it get breakdown, it will decline, and you can easily see that by your eye when you are sitting in the monitoring truck. When you see the pressure going up, when the formation start, the hydraulic fracture will initiate. You will see a decline, a little decline in the bottom hole pressure. Then it will grow like this. Look to the mouse, like this. At this point, we call it the cushion pressure. This is exactly when you stopped injection. Okay, when you stopped injection. A little bit after that, here I get this point, and we call it ISIP, instantaneous shut-in pressure. Why I don't get the cushion pressure and I get this ISIP a little bit after that? Because we still have a friction inside the system. So when you stop injection, we still, for a short period of time, maybe a second or two, we still have a friction inside the system. Because when you stop injecting, not all the fluid will stop immediately in all pipes. Okay, so we go a little bit here to get the ISIP. Then we'll keep recording the decline. And at this point, the fracture will close on the propellant. So after that, we will call it reservoir dominated. Before that, I will call it fracture dominated. I will do analysis, well testing analysis for the period before the fracture close and after the fracture close. And I can get many information out of that, and starting from next lecture, I will show you what kind of formations you can get from this analysis. Okay, but please try to remember the shape, try to remember these names, like the breakdown pressure, ISIP, cushion pressure, fracture closure pressure, because this is very, very important if you want to work as a frac engineer. Okay, so as a summary for the objectives or the applications of hydraulic fracturing, we use it to enhance productivity. This is a common hydraulic frac we know. Also, we may use it as a sand control, the short and fat fractures, what we call it frac and pack. And also we can have hydraulic fractures in water flooding project, like in injectors. Sometimes we frag them by mistake or unintentionally, because when we inject water from the surface, this water very cold compared to the reservoir temperature, and I keep cooling down the reservoir, and at some point the breakdown pressure keep decreasing, because when you cool down, the stresses will decrease. Okay, so the breakdown pressure will decrease because of the cooling effect. So maybe after a month or two, or a year or two, the injector will get fractured unintentionally without planning to fracture it. Also, there is one of the very interesting applications of hydraulic fracturing is to use hydraulic fracturing as a disposal technique. And the good thing, in my career, I worked 5 years in designing hydraulic frac job for disposal, to dispose drill cuttings, to dispose produced water. Okay, so the last topic for today, I want to cover with you why we do hydraulic fracturing, why it is successful. All companies like to do fracking. Okay, so why it is successful? Okay, so long time ago in 1856 we had Mr. Henry Darcy, the famous French civil engineer. He used to design a fountain somewhere beside Paris, and he invented this equation to link the injection rate. I'm saying injection rate because he was uh, talking about fountain. A fountain is just that thing that has water come out of it and has a very nice shape, and put it in the middle of a square or whatever. So this is he was trying to link the injection rate with the cross-section area of this pipe, the pressure difference between point A and B, and also the length of the pipe, and mu, which is the viscosity of the fluid, which is water in this case. Okay, and also he invented a new term called K, which is the permeability of this medium. Okay, so why I'm showing you this? I'm showing you this because simply you can see the relation between Q, which is the injection rate or production rate, and A, which is the cross-section area of this pipe. If you have a bigger pipe, it will get you more water. If you get a smaller pipe, it will get you less water, right? Assuming the other parameters will stay constant. Make sense? So whenever you increase A, you will increase Q. Very easy. It means when you increase contact area between a well and a reservoir, you will increase Q. How is that? Look to the bottom picture. This is a vertical well. This gray zone, this is the reservoir. And here, this is the intersection between the vertical well and the reservoir. Okay, so here is the contact area between the well and the reservoir. Look beside it. This is a horizontal well. And now I have more contact area between the well and the reservoir. Simply, this is why a horizontal well will produce more oil and gas and water compared with a vertical well. Make sense? Also, if you create a hydraulic fracture, you will increase the contact area between the well and the reservoir. So if it is a vertical well and you made a hydraulic fracture, now you are increasing more the contact area between the well and the reservoir. So a fractured vertical well will produce more than a vertical well without a fracture. A fractured horizontal well will produce more than a horizontal well without a fracture. Makes sense? Why? Because I am increasing the contact area between the well and the reservoir. Okay. Also, when we create a hydraulic fracture, here is a fracture, here is a fracture width. By the way, fracture width may be 1 millimeter, something very, very, very small. Just we make it too big here just to show you. Okay? And the fracture length maybe 300 feet or 400 feet, something like that. And fracture height, it depends on the, the upper barrier and the bottom barrier. So it is different from a case to a case. So we have something we call fracture conductivity, which is W, the fracture width, times Kf, which is the permeability of the propellant. Here is all of that is propellant. This is a propellant. This powder, these little balls, we call it propellant. Okay, and it is very, very conductive compared with the normal rock. Okay, so if you multiply the fracture width with the permeability of the propellant, we'll get something called fracture conductivity. So a second reason why hydraulic fracturing is something good, because I'm creating a very conductive surface inside my reservoir, and because this surface very conductive, it will connect immediately, it will communicate immediately whenever any oil or gas or water reach the fracture body, it will go immediately to the well bore and will get produced immediately. Okay, it is very similar when you go to your home, you go to your college, your school, and you decide to go back home, and instead of going through very crowded places, very crowded square and something like that, you take the highway and go directly without stopping, without no traffic light, nothing, no crowd. So the hydraulic fracturing is a highway, okay? And formation damage will make this highway or make the formation very crowded, very like a big square in a very in a rush hour, okay? Okay. What is the third reason why hydraulic fracturing is something good? Because hydraulic fracturing okay, let me wait. I will not say that now because if I say it, I should answer my third question, and I don't want to share the answer now. Let me ask you this question first. Hydraulic fracturing fix the damage or fix the formation damage and not bypass it. Try to answer. Hydraulic fracturing will fix the formation damage and not bypass it. Almost 70% said no, and 30% said yes. So let me end the polling and share the results with you. So the right answer is the hydraulic fracturing, as you see here. Look, the brown or the red color, this is a damaged zone. And also the green, this is invaded zone. So it is damaged, but not that big damage that like the red one. Okay? And the hydraulic fracture did not fix the damage. We did not fix the damage by hydraulic fracturing. The hydraulic fracturing bypassed the damage. I have a very crowded square. I will keep it crowded. I will not fix it. But I will make a highway at the top of that square, and you take your car, drive your car, and you instead of going through all this crowd and you lose a lot of time, you will take the highway. So the fracture is a highway. So the fracture is bypassing the formation damage and not fixing it. So the right answer here is hydraulic fracturing will fix the damage and not bypass it. This is no. This is wrong. So the right answer is no. Okay? Okay. So again, one more time, I want to remind you that, if you work as a petroleum engineer, you are very similar to a doctor job or a physician job. Why I'm using this model? Because a lot of things inside the reservoir, we cannot see it by our eyes. I cannot see the formation damage, for example. And if you tell me a fines migration, I cannot see that. You tell me something moving from somewhere inside the reservoir to another place inside the reservoir. So we need to have some models to, make these ideas close to your mind. So you as a petroleum engineer, you work very similar to a physician. Your reservoir, when it become damaged, when it gets formation damage, it will become like a patient. And the disease is any type of formation damage. So formation damage is your enemy. Formation damage is the disease. Okay? Also, if someone has a disease, for sure there is a symptoms and diagnosis, like when the physician asks you what you are feeling, you say, hey, I'm coughing, I have fever, I have a dry throat or whatever. So this is symptoms. Okay. How to diagnose? He may ask you to, let's say, to get some test, to get a blood test, to go and get a scan for your chest or whatever. So these things we use it to diagnose. So in oil and gas, we have something similar. We do production logging. This is very similar to a scan. When you get a sample, this is very similar when you get a blood test, for example. Okay. Then also you review the data, the production data. When you do that, this is very similar, like you are trying to figure out what is the specific disease you are facing in your reservoir. What is the specific formation damage you are facing or you have in your reservoir. Also, at the end, you need to write down the medicine or the remedy, which is maybe you will say, I will inject acids, a specific acid. I will inject a specific chemical. I will do acid frac. I will do hydraulic frac. So all of these things, which is a well stimulation techniques, we will consider that a medicine or a remedy. Okay. I wish the first lecture was easy to understand, and for sure we'll get more details about hydraulic fracturing, acidizing, and acid fracturing in the next few lectures. Now we are ready to answer your questions.
Thank you, Doctor, for this informative session. Now we will begin by addressing some questions. The first question is that, is well stimulation part of workover?
Yes, whenever a workover job, most likely whenever the well in the production period and we want to let's say do something, let's say we get the sucker pump pipe get parted, so I will call a workover rig maybe, or a pulling unit. Okay, so we can call that a workover operation. Also, sometimes we call a workover rig to do a frac job. Sometimes we do it rigless, so we can consider um, uh, well stimulation job. If it is hydraulic fracturing or acidizing or acid fracking, we can consider that a workover job, even if we do it with using a workover rig or a rigless operation or using a coil tube.
Yes, yes. So the second question is that in case the reservoir capillaries have been blocked, how can we determine that?
Okay, so changing the with the this is really very very good question. Understanding the history of your reservoir, what is injected in your reservoir. If you have good reservoir engineers inside your company, doing simulation models, they have already cores from the reservoir. We can predict things like that. So if you get, let's say, change of wattability, or a problem with the capillary pressure or this kind of things, we can predict that. Based on our understanding for the reservoir. But again, sometimes it is very hard to know exactly what is the main problem. But for sure, whenever I notice there's a decline in the productivity, my choices are very limited. Most likely, I will do, let's say, a frac job, acid job, and I need to select what should be the right acid and what is the right additives, and maybe I will do acid frac. So sometimes we do a treatment without understanding everything about the problem, which is not recommended. But to understand the problem in a very very small details maybe will be very very expensive, and your manager inside the company will not happy to spend a lot of money. Just whenever the production get declined, with quick analysis, will say, hey, we will do a frac job, or we'll do acidizing. So yes, we can know that, but it will cost you a lot of money.
Okay, thank you. Another question is that, why do we use hydraulic fracturing for high permeability reservoirs?
Okay, so this is also a very good question. We do it for high permeability. Let's say you are satisfied with your production and there is no problem with the production, you don't want more oil. But whenever you have a high permeability reservoir, most likely it will produce solids with the oil and gas and water. If it is sandstone formation, for example, like in Gulf of Mexico, or let's say in somewhere in the Mediterranean or whatever, deep water project, this tubing very, very expensive. This completion very, very expensive. So a deep water well may cost you $150 million. Half of this money goes to the completion. Okay, so if you produce solids, you will damage this very expensive completion. So we use hydraulic frac job. We design a specific type of hydraulic fractures. We call it fat and short fractures. A fracture was very short and very fat. The width is big and the length is short. We do it for sand control to like you are creating a screen inside the formation. You know the screen we use in our kitchen, a screen, something like has holes in it. So these holes will let the hydrocarbon and water go through and will stop the sand inside the formation. So the sand will not reach the wellbore and will stay away from the very expensive tubings. Yes, we do it, but not to increase the productivity, to stop sand production.
Okay, thank you. Also, another question. When it comes to hydraulic fracturing and acid fracturing, which method is more efficient while doing stimulation due to formation damage? And when exactly should we use hydraulic fracturing and acid fracturing?
Okay, this is a very good question also. And the answer is too long, but the simple answer, your experience as a stimulation engineer is to select the right candidate. You will do the hydraulic frac job if you work for, let's say, Apache or Chevron or Exxon or BP or Shell. You will do the hydraulic frac job. Also, you will do the acid job. Also, you will do the acid frac job. So it is most likely the same person will be involved in the same project. But your main question you need to answer, if you have a sandstone formation, sandstone reservoir, okay, and you ask me as a myself, what do you prefer? Most likely I will say most likely hydraulic fracturing will be better. Why? Because if it is a sandstone formation and I will do a hydraulic fracturing, I can get the negative skin maybe to -4 or -3, means a lot of production. But if I will do acidizing, and this is a sandstone formation, for example, I can get the negative skin most likely to 0. In sandstone, when I do acidizing using HF and HCl, most likely we cannot get any negative skin. Just like we are washing the formation and removing the damage, but we cannot get a negative skin most likely, or you get something very, very little. So I will say I will do hydraulic fracturing if it is a sandstone formation. This will give me more production. But if it is a carbonate, if it is limestone formation or dolomite, most likely I will vote for acidizing or acid fracturing. If it is a horizontal well, maybe I will get a coil tube and do acid fracturing. Okay. Also, so both acidizing and acid fracturing most likely will give better production enhancement compared, if it is a carbonate, compared with doing a normal hydraulic fracturing. So if you need something simple, your first choice, if it is a sandstone formation, you will do a hydraulic fracturing. If it is carbonate, your first choice will be acidizing or acid fracturing. If it is shale, most likely you will use a complex treatment, most likely hydraulic fracturing. But at the beginning of that hydraulic frac job, we inject some acids to lower down the breakdown pressure for shale. I wish this answered your question.
Yes, thank you. And also, someone asked, when or in what cases can skin reach 100?
Okay, so again, this is very good question. So whenever you damage your reservoir, let's say by mistake, your the tubing very dirty, has a lot of let's say bacteria, a lot of scale, a lot of deposits, and you keep injecting. And you injected something, a chemical by mistake, for example, that dissolved all of these solids from the tubing, and now you are injecting, pushing all of that to the reservoir. Imagine, for example, you injected a hydraulic frac job and you forgot to add a breaker. Okay? Yes, for sure, we most likely this will not happen, but if you do it, yes, we'll get a very high formation damage. Imagine you have a very, very rusty tubing, which has a lot of rust, and you injected all of that to your formation. So most likely you will inject many kilograms of iron to the formation, and you most likely you may end up to zero permeability or zero production. Zero permeability for the near wellbore zone, which is will lead to zero production. So yes, we may have that, but we need. Forgive me for saying that. We need a stupid mistake. Someone know nothing about what is he's doing, and yes, he can make this catastrophic problem. It is possible.
Thank you, Doctor. Now the last question for today. How, if you remove the skin and at the same time we have the conning water, what could happen and how can we control the problem?
Say it again because I did not get the question.
Like if you have water conning.
Okay.
And skin damage, I think.
You know, there is no direct relation between conning, water conning, and the damage. You know, I did not get the exactly what the attendee asking about, but water conning mainly when we produce, let's say, water conning may happen in a vertical well, also may happen if we have a horizontal well. So when we produce in a rate higher than the optimum, you keep getting the water at the bottom of your reservoir. Most of the reservoirs will have water at the bottom, maybe oil at the top, maybe some gas at the at the top. So they are in succession. Water always in the bottom. So if you produce in a high rate, higher than the optimum, this water will start making a cone and get closer to the perforation, and at some point you will start producing a lot of water. And if you get that, now I think now I understand the question. So he mean if we get that water because of water coning, maybe I will think maybe there is a formation damage. Okay, so your job as a good production engineer and as a good reservoir engineer first is to predict and estimate what should be the right production rate. The right production rate to avoid getting a water coning. Also, you have a reservoir model in your company, especially the reservoir engineers know that. And you know if there is a high chance to get a water coning problem soon or not. Okay, so if you have something like this and you find yourself getting a lot of water and you are producing a lot in a high rate, let's say lower your production rate a little bit and see what will happen. Shut down your well for a few days and see what will happen. If you shut down your well for a few days until this water cone relax and go back again, then you start producing in a lower rate. If you see this problem gone, it means most likely this was a water coning and not a formation damage problem. And most of water coning problems, the first thing we do is to lower the production rate or to shut down the well for a few days, and then we open the production again in a lower rate and see what will happen. Hopefully this answers your question.
Yes, thank you. So thank you, Doctor, for this informative session today. And now for the unanswered question, we will sure try to address them in future Q&A sessions. Now to highlight, this session has been recorded and it will be uploaded soon on Biopetra's YouTube channel. So kindly subscribe if you want to get our latest updates. Now I want to remind you about some ground rules. So first, please don't forget to join Google Classroom for Introduction to Well Stimulation course. The codes of the classrooms are posted on Arab Oil and Gas Academy Facebook page. Two codes are posted. However, you should only use one code to join only one classroom. And second, once you join, fill the required personal information form with the same email you are going to use for the quizzes and the exams. And also, third, do the required quizzes. They are four, and the final exam, which will be held by the end of the course. And the date will be posted on the Facebook page. Otherwise, you won't be able to get your certificate. Now, regarding for signing up and Google Classroom problems and troubleshooting, please refer to the link I have sent in the chat box. It's mainly the Arab Oil and Gas Academy Facebook page. Now, good luck, Happy New Year, and see you in future webinars. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Have a good day.